the arrest of Maduro is somewhat comparable to the fall of the Berlin Wall. I think this is going to have knock-on effects throughout the region. Cuba depends almost completely on Venezuelan money. Cuba is a failed state. It's been communist as of 3 years, as of 3 days ago. It's been communist for 67 years.
Hello and welcome to Independence Avenue Media. I'm Ia Meurmishvili and my guest today is Mike Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez is a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. It's a think tank based in Washington, D.C. He started his career as a journalist and later on he worked in the George W. Bush administration as a speechwriter and later on as an official at the State Department. And with that, Mr. Gonzalez, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Let's start from the really general question. What do you think is happening regarding Venezuela right now?
They used to be very rich with the world's largest known oil reserves, about 300 billion with a B, barrels in oil reserves, 6 times what we have, but with which became very corrupt. It became not a government, but a cartel, a drug cartel, run by a cartel known as Cartel de los Soles, the Cartel of the Suns. The government in place right now is not legitimate. It has lost an election. It lost an election in 2024. It refused to hand over power. Maduro, who is not the president of Venezuela, he's the head of the Suns cartel, was indicted in New York, and the Trump administration went and served and executed an arrest warrant with the FBI in Caracas, extradited him, not losing a single life. I understand only 7 people were wounded or injured on the American side, and none of them are in critical condition. All of them are in stable condition. On the other side, between 40 and 50 were killed. By the way, the vast majority of them were not Venezuelans, they were Cubans. The Cuban government has admitted to this Sunday night. It just published moments ago a picture of the 32 who were killed. Up until Sunday, the Cuban government had denied fervently that it had any troops in Caracas. However, the estimate is about 15,000 Cuban troops. The Cuban footprint is really an army of occupation, and they were the people around Maduro. That's the reason why more Cubans got killed in the extradition than Venezuelans.
President Trump's opponents are saying that this was not a law enforcement operation, and the president is basically going after Venezuela's oil. How do you explain that? What do you think?
There's several things here. That first and foremost, Maduro, the Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello, actually another indicted thug, was very clear in 2019 that Venezuela was going to unleash a Bolivarian. That's the name for the revolution, a Bolivarian hurricane in the streets of its enemies. And so either through narcotic smuggling or through political instability, they set out to sow political instability, to undermine the foundations of the United States. So that is by itself, about 100,000 people die of drug overdose a year in the U.S., more people were killed in Vietnam or Korea, and that's a year. And I think the Trump administration, quite rightly, is very focused in these areas, especially not just Venezuela, but also Colombia and Mexico, where the drugs come from. And we will see a lot more of this coming in the coming months and years. Now, on the oil, Venezuela produces only 1 million barrels a day, 1 million, with reserves of 300 billion. So it has 6 times the reserves of the United States, and we produce 14 times what they do, and sell it in the oil market. Most of this is because of mismanagement, because of corruption. PDVSA, the oil monopoly, became what the Department of the Treasury called a tool for corruption. So yeah, I think that it'd be good. It'd be to the benefit of the Venezuelans and of the Americans and the whole world if we could actually get more of this heavy crude. The problem with Venezuelan oil is that it's heavy crude. It mostly sits in the Orinoco belt. So that presents problems with extraction and problems with refining. You need constant. You need good management. You need constant investment, and you need to get rid of the corruption. None of this happens when you have a cartel running PDVSA, the oil monopoly. So yeah, the oil is a concern. They getting Venezuelan oil flowing again and selling in the world market is a concern if you want to reduce prices here in the United States. I don't understand why Mr. Trump's political opponents would be upset about this.
The concern is connected to what will happen to Venezuela in the future, not as much as, well, it's not connected directly to Maduro and his ouster, but how is the country going to be functioning, and is it going to be a long-term security a threat to the United States now that Maduro, a strongman that controlled everything, is out? Especially when President Trump said that now the U.S. is running Venezuela. So, what's shed some light on that? How is the U.S. running it? What lies in the future for Venezuela here?
People with skin in the game are very supportive of this. Maria Corina Machado, who won the Nobel Peace Prize last year, is very supportive of this. And Edmundo Gonzalez, who won the election in 2024, only because Machado could not run, because Maduro did not allow Machado to run. He is very supportive of this. Venezuelans in Madrid, in New York, in Miami, in Doral, Florida, who are free to express their opinions, are over the moon. They say, the very famous Venezuelan economist Daniel DiMartino said in New York yesterday that was the happiest day in his life. So I'm going to go with the Venezuelans themselves and what they're saying. Um, we're not really running Venezuela directly. I think what the administration is trying to do is run it indirectly by getting Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, who's also a thug, who's also a communist, a drug kingpin, getting her to cooperate with the United States, with Secretary Rubio and with Trump. It's not known. None of us know yet what that cooperation will look like. I think I trust Secretary Rubio and President Trump to follow the situation and act accordingly. They're very adaptable.
You mentioned both Cuba and Colombia. So does the administration. President Trump himself said it. He said that Colombia has a sick president right now. What do you make of it? Do you think this operation will turn into something wider in the region? Is Cuba next? Is Colombia next?
I think I think that the arrest of Maduro is somewhat comparable to the fall of the Berlin Wall. I think this is going to have knock-on effects throughout the region. Cuba depends almost completely on Venezuelan money. Cuba is a failed state. It's been communist as of 3 years, as of 3 days ago. It's been communist for 67 years. The revolution took a very wealthy country and society and reduced it to shambles. The Cuban capital, Havana, the city of my birth, is incidentally is in very badly decay with rats and garbage all over the place. Cuba without Venezuelan subsidies, Cuba without the Venezuelan money, the oil revenues that it used to get from PDVSA, uh, will be a complete basket case, and it's not likely that it can sustain itself. Something has to give. In the case of Colombia, it's a different case. Colombia is a democracy. The man the Colombians elected, Gustavo Petro, is, however, I follow his Twitter feed. It's very entertaining, especially at night. As after he comes under the influence of something, he begins to get very philosophical. He cites Garcia Marquez. He talks about leopards and unicorns and and mystical figures. And I don't think he is right in his mind. If you read what he writes, and Colombia is the world's largest producer of cocaine, which also leads to the overdose and death of 100,000 Americans every year. Mexico is another important country you didn't mention. I'm going to add Mexico. The Mexican government has lost control of huge swaths of the territory, the north, and this is just a fact. They are what's called the 27 plazas, the 27 areas that are being run by the cartels, especially the Sinaloa cartel. So we already have extraditions taking place led by Americans, American pilots landing and taking out drug kingpins. This has been confirmed to me by Mexican officials, senior officials in the north, that this is happening, this is underway. And Claudia Sheinbaum, another Marxist. I hope you're picking up a theme here. Marxism, it leads to corruption and the inability to run a state. Um, uh, she she's been very supportive of Maduro, and with good reason, because she's an ideological mate. But I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing the same. That obviously Claudia Sheinbaum is going to be extradited. Claudia Sheinbaum was elected president. She's very popular. This is not the case with Maduro, who was not elected anything. But she has lost control of the territory, and we're getting a lot of drugs from Mexico.
After all this, how pessimistic or optimistic are you about the region? Most countries in South America are very important to the United States. And it's very clear from the national security strategy that we saw not too long ago.
One, the NSS said it was in the #1 region. Yeah, I am extremely optimistic. We have Milei. Argentina is a key country. Milei, who's been there for over a year now, has been a very successful president, getting the Argentine economy under control and functioning again. In Chile, Jose Antonio Cast, a friend of mine, has just been elected. He's about to take over from the Marxist Gustavo Boric. We're going to have elections in Peru that are going to swing to the right. We're going to get a conservative president in Peru. We're going to get a conservative president elected in Colombia as well. Petro will not be able to help anybody get elected. He's very unpopular. He's a joke. He's seen as a joke by Colombians. We're likely to get a conservative in Colombia as well. We got a conservative in Bolivia, in President Paz. He's doing all the right things. I recently met with his foreign minister. We got a conservative president in Paraguay, who's also doing great things. Panama, I met with the president he received me in the palace last year. He wanted to talk to me about being arrested by Noriega, because he was also arrested by Noriega. Look, I'm generally optimistic always, but this time I have reason to be.
You just watched that interview with Mike Gonzalez, a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. If you like our interviews, do subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us on social media wherever you are on social media. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.